thank you all so much for coming out. I don't know if it's still rainy, but it was obviously good, very good. Is this anybody's first time coming to Trident? Oh, awesome, fantastic. Well, so we've actually been in business for 31 years now, which is really exciting for an independent bookstore, considering, the big wigs like Barnes & Noble and Amazon kind of doing what they're doing. So first off, I just want to take a second to thank you for coming, and if you get a second tonight to browse any books, either upstairs or downstairs, we have a huge cookbook selection in the corner. Of course, there's a great cookbook right here that you should probably get. But we've got some really great gift stuff. We've only got Halloween stuff out so far. We're not quite at Christmas yet, so don't worry about that. But in other words, my name is Matt LeBombard. I'm the event coordinator here. I've been doing this job for just about a year now. We do everything in this space from cooking demos to play readings to poetry slams, story slams. We do parties. We do lots of different stuff. So if you get a chance, if you're interested in learning a little bit more about what I bring into the store, or if you're interested, you can check out our website. But more importantly, if there's something you'd like to see at the store, I'm always looking for creative ideas or new things to bring in. So if there's a specific author, I don't know if I can get Stephen King to come here, but maybe I can try. But if there's a specific local author, someone you'd like to see come and do a cooking demonstration, please let me know. I'd be glad to do my best to bring that person in. But more importantly, I'm going to pass it over to Robert. We're really excited. He's got a great cookbook. It's already in our system, so if you're interested in purchasing it tonight, you can pay for it right downstairs. If you could just close out any food tabs that you have before you pay for it downstairs with us, that would be really fantastic. So enjoy your evening. Thank you so much for coming out, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. So let me invite you all to move a little closer, since it's not a very full house at the moment. You may as well come close so you guys can see what I'm doing. Are you going to be standing there, or are you just going to get a roll in? I'm going to be moving around. Okay. Hi, Jenny.
People will sprinkle in, it'll be fine.
Well, thank you all for coming. The rain was a little scary earlier, thinking that nobody would be traveling, but here we are. I'm Robert Mandolin, for those of you who don't know, and the author of this cookbook here, which you can sign. I'll sign it for you at the end of this, and then you can pay for it downstairs.
Yay!
I want to thank Trident Booksellers and Cafe for inviting me to be here tonight. I'll be sharing some cooking techniques with you, and I hope we'll all have some fun. That's really the most important thing. What's the point of working hard in the kitchen if you don't like it? Really? Some months ago, Matt Lombard, who you just heard, did a cooking demonstration here at the store himself. And he talked right at the beginning about knives. And I thought, yes, that's really good. And he said, you only need 3 knives. And he was right. I completely agree. But I thought I'd talk a little bit more about knives and things which are actually knives, but aren't called knives, and you might not think they're knives. But I say, if it's sharp and you can cut yourself, it's a knife. Okay? The thing Matt talked about needing were these 3 knives. A chef's knife, something with serrated edge for soft fruit or bread, and a paring knife. And there are a few others, but I want to call your attention to something here. They all have something really important in common. You see what it is? They have something called a tang, which is part of the actual blade that goes all the way into the handle. All the way through it. You see all 3 of these knives have rivets holding those things together to the handle. The importance of that is twofold. One is, it makes it very sturdy. You don't have the knife blades breaking off anywhere. And the other is, it creates balance. The handle is almost as heavy as the blade. And that means, if you're cutting up a lot of stuff, it's just a whole lot easier on your hands and your arms and everything else. You're not fighting the tool that's supposed to help you. Here's another one, slightly smaller. Same thing. The rivets, the tang going all the way through. I thought I would introduce you to, however, my old acquaintance, the really big chef's knife. I've had this knife for 30 years. That's how well made they are and how long they last and how good an edge you can put on them. Okay? Besides that, there are other things. I'm going to tell you about some of them. This is a slicer. Doesn't look like a knife, it's not called a knife. And you really can't cut yourself on it. But if you're cutting cheese with it, you can cut yourself on it. You know, the sharp cheese will catch and you'll go, and then suddenly your hand is in the way. This is also not called a knife, but it's a mini version of a grater. It is called, anybody know what it's called? That's the hardware store name for it, that's right. It's called a Microplane. It's exactly from a hardware store. That's where it came from originally, as a hasp, something to file down some wood. You don't need to like take off a big piece. You're just like smoothing something out. The other thing that's also from the hardware store is something called Mandolin.
Fingertips.
There's a gadget here which raises and lowers, and you can change blades by pulling something out and putting in a different kind of blade. You can make French fries with it. You can shred cabbage for coleslaw, which is what I did. You'll be seeing that later. It's actually a plane. If this had a handle on it, you could use this to plane wood. Same deal as a hardware store plane. So don't let anybody tell you there isn't an overlap between trades. Okay. There are some other things. This is a box grater. It's really good. It's better than a regular kind of grater that just has one side because it stays put. You can hold it like this. You can put it in a bowl. You can really go to town. And it has different, you can slice, you can do big jobs, you can do tiny little jobs and minuscule jobs. Although I don't find this one very useful, it kind of wastes things. Kind of like a garlic press, and I'll get to that in a minute. There's also something called a pastry blender. You probably all had that in your home too. I didn't think of this as a knife until Martha Stewart, of all people, on a TV show said that she uses this not just for pastry blending, but to cut up eggs for egg salad. And I thought, what a great idea. In that case, it's a blade and it cuts. And yes, if you banged it into your hand, you could break skin. And then there's this. You all know what this is for? This is a blade for a food processor. I realized I didn't need to take the whole kit and caboodle with me tonight to show you this. So this is easy to transport. This is not the same as a blender. It's very different and has different uses. You can find that out by experimenting. But something that does take the place of a blender and sometimes the place of a food processor is something which goes by various names, sometimes called a wand. This has a little blade in the bottom of it, and you can put it right into the pot that you've cooked the food in and puree everything in there without putting it into another container, meaning more dishes you have to wash. It's a very handy thing. And it really works very well, and it's guarded. So you see, you could put this inside a plastic yogurt container, and nothing would happen. The blade is not touching the bottom, and it's not touching the sides. So this guard around it really makes a difference. But it is a knife, and it is very sharp. All of these things. Oh, and then one last little thing. It's called a peeler. How many of you have one that's all made out of metal? Really, that's what they all were, and they were great. I mean, they did the job. They were really hard to hold. They had no handle to speak of. So nowadays, there's something wonderful. These things that you can really grip, and you can just really wail on this thing like this and do a carrot in about 10 seconds, or less. This is really great to sew. But, okay, so the problem is, with these knives, for them to effectively work, they have to be sharp. So you have to get them sharp, and then you have to keep them sharp, which is a different operation. I want to introduce you to the whetstone, as it's called. This stone has two sides on it. One is kind of fine, very smooth, and the other is very coarse. If you buy it in a store, they'll ask you to buy this with it. It's expensive sharpening oil. But you can use anything you've already got in your kitchen. You don't need to buy this stuff. Some decent, neutral flavored oil of any kind works fine. And the way it works is, you simply put a little bit on the stone, and then you take the blade, and holding it with your hand like this, you go down the side of the blade all the way to the end, top to bottom, little circular motions. You can even get creative and do that. And then when you do the other side, you do the same way. Always run in the same direction. I don't need to do this much because this one's already sharp. And then, every time you start to use this knife with a big project, you're going to cut a lot of stuff. This is called a steel. And this is what keeps it sharp. The stone gets it sharp. This keeps it sharp. So every time you go into the kitchen for more than a sandwich, if you're going to use your knife for more than 15 minutes, this is a good thing to do. And it's the same thing. You'll see in restaurants or other cooking shows, guys with big hats, who are called chefs, who like to do it sharpening, use this like this. This is the motion they use. And they do it really fast, and it's scary to watch, but this is all they're doing. I've never liked that particular method. It always seemed to me that I didn't have good control. So I do this. Same thing. I'm going in the same direction on both sides, and the same way you do it if you did it this way. And I've seen people do this, and all kinds of things. There is no one right way. Find the method that works for you. You get this amazingly sharp thing, and it's very, very good. I think the other thing I want to tell you about this, however, now is now that you have a very sharp knife, it will do two things. It will make it much easier to cut things, and it won't stick. People cut themselves on knives principally because they have a dull knife. So when they're chopping, it glances off whatever they're trying to cut, and into them usually. That's where you get into trouble with a dull knife. A sharper knife, of course, would cut you really bad if it cut you at all, but it's less likely to cut you. And the other thing is, not about knives now, but about you, about me, whenever you're using something like this, pay attention. If you're using this knife, and for any reason you need to look someplace else, something smells like it's burning on the stove, somebody at the door says, oh, hello, blah, 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 you know, before you turn your head, you not only put down the knife, you face it with the blade as far away from you as it can be. Not just this way, and you let go of it. And then you turn and say, oh, I didn't do that once. Once. Never forgot. I was lucky. There was a doctor nearby on a Sunday afternoon in a resort town. Keeping it sharp and using it with attention. It's actually something that's so important, I would advise you to actually practice it. There's a myth. I wanted to straighten it out right now because I keep hearing it. Don't cut your lettuce, tear it. If you cut it, it will bruise the lettuce. I'm going like, how is cutting and tearing, why will one bruise it more than another? But everywhere for years I've heard this. And people on cooking TV shows expound this with great authenticity. You know, never cut the lettuce. Well, maybe that's true if your knife is dull. You know, then you'll bruise the lettuce. But if you have a really sharp knife, it cut the lettuce. Unless all you're doing is like a leaf of lettuce for your sandwich, it takes forever to tear a lettuce. With a knife, you can go, and it's all
What
done.
a relief.
What a relief, yeah. So
You just freed us up here.
here's the trick. I got a big tip of the night, folks. Most food doesn't have a flat side. It's kind of roundish. Think of anything you can imagine. It doesn't come square, except maybe a block of tofu. Most stuff, for you to work on it, you have to create a flat side so that it's not moving around while you're trying to cut it in pieces. And I'm going to demonstrate that in just a second. And the other thing I want to tell you tonight is that before you start to cook, imagine, please, what you think you want to have at the end. What it will look like, what it will taste like. And then get all the ingredients you want together ahead of time. Because how many of you have been in this situation? You're doing something and you go, oh, I need the baking powder. And it's in a cupboard with a door and a drawer inside that. And your hands are full of food. So you have the choice of either washing everything up and drying your hand, where is that towel, and then going for it, or it could just be on the counter right there in front of you because you put it there when you started. It's a little thing, but it saves immense amount of time and mess. So I encourage you to assemble your ingredients, and then lastly, taste as you go. Nothing is the same. No two zucchini taste the same. You know, no chili peppers taste the same, regardless of how they're rated in terms of heat. I've had the mildest form of chilies be really hot, and really hot ones be sort of like disappointing. You know, so taste it as you go, and season it as you go. Some things need a little salt when they start. Some things need it later. If you're using dried herbs, they're a concentrated flavor, and you can put them in at the beginning of any dish. If it's a fresh herb, it should wait till the end because they're not going to last for any length of time in cooking. Season as you go. It really makes a difference. So now, I'm going to start in on the first dish. Lots of things to talk about. This is an Asian slaw. I thought about it because there was a little Asian restaurant in Arlington years ago. It isn't there anymore, Sai. And they specialized in both Thai food and Japanese food, which was really cool. And when you sat down, they always put this little dish as it was kind of like an appetizer, but not anything like in the West you'd understand as an appetizer. It would have like some very thinly sliced carrot and some julienne radishes and some mung bean sprouts, and they would all be either marinated in something very mild, or the mung bean sprouts, I remember, were just soaked in a little roasted sesame oil. They were little tastes. They're really great. It was a real palate cleanser before you began the meal, and it didn't fill you up, didn't take away anything from the meal. But I thought, that's a really nice idea. So here's an Asian slaw inspired from that. There is no mayonnaise, which means it's great for picnics or buffets. You can have it sit out for hours. Nothing will hurt you. And I thought it would be really great to share that with you tonight. I do want to say something about salads before I start chopping. When you make a salad, one of the things you have to look at is how easy is it to eat. Imagine you're lifting a fork to your mouth with something on it. On the other hand, it's not only a question of how big the pieces should be, right? But also, if there's an art form to it. When you eat with chopsticks, you know what I'm talking about. It's not the same as a fork. And you can do things with chopsticks that doesn't work with a fork and vice versa. So usually when I go to have Asian food, I ask for chopsticks and a fork, because there are times when I'm not going to have patience for one or the other. All I'm saying is Asian cooking depends a lot on different shapes of things for eye appeal. It's an art form. And so you can have fun when you make these kind of things by deciding what shape you want to cut things up into. And I'm going to show you some of those. Spaghetti is also another art form, which is not chopsticks, of course, but in some parts of Italy, you take a big spoon and a fork and you wind it around using the spoon to hold, you twist it all around your fork that way. And in other parts of Italy, they think that's really sort of like, what's the word for it? Gauche, yes. Not very etiquette filled. And they do the same thing with the fork, but without using a spoon, which is really quite tricky, but they think more elegant. I showed you this thing a minute ago. This is a mandolin. And you can raise or lower this thing. And there are gadgets in here so you can make French fries and all kinds of other stuff. But I didn't use it for that. I used it just as a blade, which is right here. It's tricky. And what I did was I just simply ran the cabbage over it. It's really, really easy. Vivian Howard, who has this wonderful cook show, she's a chef in North Carolina. Her mother left her a bunch of money to start a restaurant, but the stipulation was it had to be in North Carolina. And she was in New York at that time and said she would never go back to North Carolina. She did. She was doing this wonderful cooking show. And she had a mandolin out. And she said, looking at the camera, now, this makes things really easy. And she's slicing away something. And she said, but you have to be very careful. Now I've been trained, she says, how to use this. And so I know how, but if you use it, you just do that, and then she cut herself. Because she wasn't using this. Every mandolin you buy comes with something like this. It's a guard. You don't have your hand down here where the blade is. You have the piece of cabbage on there, and you go like this. And the only problem with that is, and I did most of the slaw this way, the problem is that you wind up with some cabbage that doesn't go through because things don't quite meet all the way, and so then you wind up having to use the knife anyhow. Unless you're doing a vat of coleslaw, like I just did, the Asian slaw. If you're just using this, use a knife. Less messy, less things to wash up. The trick is, you'll see what I've done here. I've cut the cabbage in fours. This is a quarter of a cabbage. And I'm going to take the core out right here. Very simple. That's that. And putting it with a flat side down. Matt says that one day we'll have a big mirror over top and you'll be able to see everything, you know, without straining around. But it's really simple. You just make as thin a slice as you can make. When you do this, here's the trick. This hand holding the vegetable or the produce or anything else needs to be here. The knife blade goes along the edge of the top of your fingers as a guide. The thumb is never sticking out. This is the thing you need to practice if you want to be able to cut things fast and accurately and safely. It's not hard to do. And when you get tired of that, you can turn it over to the other side. And the other thing that I'm doing, if you'll notice, please, when I cut, the tip of the blade does not come off the board. If I were doing this, it would be chopping. But that's not what most things are with a knife. What you're doing is slicing. And the way that works is this stays put. This is what goes up and down. But if you keep this on the board, you're in control. And it's very easy. You can just really do this. You know, and if you go down and there's nothing there because you're trying to make it too fine, well, that's all right, do it again. But you can come up with really, really fine cabbage. And then, because I said something about the fork, cut it up a little bit because otherwise, you know, you wind up picking up a fork and there's this spaghetti-like piece of cabbage. Okay? I used both red and green cabbage for this dish because, apart from the color thing, I like the taste of red cabbage. I've made kimchi with red cabbage, which is actually wonderful. Works exactly the same way anything else works. And I want to encourage you to experiment. Don't assume that because the recipe says one thing, that's the way you need to do it. Let me have this over here so that as I cut things up, I can actually just put it into something I didn't mention because it's not in this recipe, but I'm going to mention it now, assuming I can find it. Where's the garlic?
Right here.
Thank you. No, I didn't. Knives are sometimes useful for other things besides chopping. Whole head of garlic. How do you get the clove? Really easy. You just knock it against the board, and then you have something like this. It's got this wonderful papery skin on it. You can hardly smell the garlic. It's so well wrapped. How do you get it out of the wrapper? Again, this time using the flat side of the knife. You just bang it. Here's the skin. Nothing. Takes nothing at all. And then, depending on what you want to use with the garlic, you can chop it very finely. The Italians like to say that you should have lots of flat surface with the garlic, very thin, but that way the flavor really permeates when you're cooking with something. But sometimes you want the garlic to disappear. You don't want chunks of garlic of any size in whatever it is you're using. And so people use a garlic press. I hate garlic presses. First of all, you don't get all the garlic. You waste some. It doesn't get all the way through. And then in cleaning, it was a real bear. But the principal reason I don't like it is because it's the only thing it does is do garlic. I don't like implements that only have one purpose. It takes up too much room in your kitchen. So if you want it to disappear, here's that microplane. And this is a really good gadget because you can sit this on top of a bowl. Just like this. And take your garlic and just grate it across here. These are sharp, but not so sharp that you're really in any danger. I'm running my finger against the blade right now, but unless I press down, it's not going to cut me. And this way, it doesn't do anything at all. All the teeth are facing the same way. So this is a really easy thing to do. You just take this and just go like that, and it collects on the other side, and you just bang it into wherever you want the garlic to go. And there's none left in here, and washing it out is nothing. So I say that to you because I think it's just really useful to have a way to deal with something like garlic that doesn't require a special piece of equipment. Get rid of all the funny things I don't need. And lastly, I want to talk about something that doesn't use a knife of any kind. This is ginger root. This is in the salad. Pretty funny looking stuff, You can see why people buy it already chopped up in jars, or ginger powder, But this is the fresh stuff, and it tastes unbelievable. How on earth do you peel the skin from this? A spoon. Odd sort of thing. The skin on the ginger is very thin. So turn the spoon over and just do this. Goes around all the curves. It's really easy to use. No danger of cutting yourself on this. And you can just peel all the skin away very quickly. And they're ready to go. Again, with this. Right into the sauce you're making, or the marinade. Really easy, get it all, there's no waste. And in the meantime, you get to smell this.